Hello everyone, I'm Kari Wolf, I'm from Adobe, and I'm here in the Summit Think Tank. We're broadcasting live from the floor of Adobe's user conference in Las Vegas, Nevada. And we're here talking to some of the most influential thinkers and practitioners in the marketing and advertising world, hearing their thoughts and getting their perspectives, and it's been a really, really valuable week. So to that end, I'd like to introduce you all to my guest, Jeriad Zoghby. Welcome, Jeriad.
Thank you.
He is the Global Personalization Lead for Accenture Interactive. We're really excited to have you here and to hear your thoughts.
Thank you.
I wanted to start by asking you about experience. That is obviously the buzzword of this event, the focus of our conference.
Yeah.
And as a personalization expert, what do you think constitutes a really good, organic, effective experience?
For me, and I think this is really important for everybody who does things in digital, is you have to translate what we think of as personal in the real world back into digital. And there's usually four elements, right? There's, we call them the 4 R's. If you go to a coffee shop all the time, you experience this. One, they recognize you, right? You go in there all the time. If they didn't recognize you, the first thing you'd say is, no, it's Jeriad. You must be new. Everybody knows me here. They remember your preferences, right? Oh, I know you like the mocha with the whipped cream and caramel drizzle, and yes, I'm not a real coffee drinker. I like the foo-foo stuff. They recommend things to you, right? Because they start to pay attention. They're like, oh, we got the new dark chocolate thing in. I know you love the dark chocolate. You want to try it. Not to even cross-sell and upsell, but to help me have a better experience. And then finally, they do it in a relevant way, which means, did I go in there with my kids? Is it sunny outside? Or more importantly, did I just have a bad experience the last time I was here? And acknowledging that can be very powerful. And so those 4 things are really important for people to think about as they build great experiences for customers, online, offline, whatever. That's what they expect.
So they're not treating it as a moment in time, they're treating it as a continuation of a story or a journey.
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. That actually leads me to another question. I'm hearing a lot about the term hyper-personalized experiences. And I'm wondering, first of all, what defines a hyper-personalized experience versus an ordinarily personalized experience, and is that a good thing?
Well, I personally hate the term hyper-personalized. It sounds very aggressive. It sounds like something you do to a customer instead of for a customer. I know the intent is right, and I think the intent behind the term hyper-personalized is, how do I do more of it, right? Do it at scale, do it through all interactions, and I think that's great. But what we're finding is that when you want to actually scale personalization, the best way to do that is to put the customer in control versus you trying to guess everything they want to do, right? If your job is to try to predict every variation they can come up with, 1, you're going to be wrong a whole lot of times. And 2, you think just in a practical sense, and so many marketers deal with this, you trying to guess every variation means a very expensive content production kind of effort that may or may not turn out to be financially viable. Whereas if you flip it on its head and say, this is not about a one-dimensional thing of me trying to guess what you want, but actually starting to create a dialogue where the customer's more in control of their journey, you find it to be a lot more scalable. Their ability to actually change the experience, to tell you what they want, actually makes it much more valuable for them, but again, more scalable for the brand and the marketer.
Yeah, so maybe participative personalization or customer-involved personalization would be a better term.
And we're seeing, it's a great term, I love that, I'll definitely be using that. It really is where we're seeing the world headed to, right? The more that, we think about things like apps and stuff, but the truth is the more that we create a conversational framework with our customers, the more we can scale personalization, and the more we actually build a real relationship with them too. So.
Right. That actually makes me curious about a project I know you were involved in. You and your team created a personalization solution known as the Accenture Genome, which is a fascinating name for a product.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you could tell us what that was about and what pain points it was designed to address.
No, absolutely. So this was something that came out of our labs. There's a guy named David Gwynn, brilliant guy who came up with this idea. And we saw it, we realized the power of the genome was it moved people from understanding what people were doing to why they were doing it, right? If you think about it, it's helpful to know what shirts I might buy. It's way more powerful to understand the fabrics that I prefer, the styles that I like, the colors, the brands, the features, the fit. That's what a really great sales rep would know. If I kept going in there in and out over and over, they would start to know these things about me and they would do a great job curating the experience for me. There's no excuse for not doing that in digital, whether you're in retail or travel or financial services or whatever. Customers are interacting digitally, you have so much information. But what the genome does is it takes every interaction and deconstructs it into those elements. And then once that happens, every time somebody comes in and has another interaction and it maps to them, it starts to create this living profile. And so that was really the premise. And really, at the end of the day, the genome is meant to be an accelerator. It's to help our clients move faster down this path so they can take advantage of technology stacks like Adobe's and get more value out of it, because you're doing a better job of listening. So.
And again, it's all in the interest of serving the customer, not
Absolutely.
collecting data for data's sake or overwhelming the systems with information that may or may not be relevant.
That's a great point. You're getting to the information that's so much more valuable to the consumer than us trying to track everything that may or may not have any value to them. On Monday, when we did the Think Tank live streaming, Penny mentioned that listening should be the first thing you do in personalization, and I could not agree more with that statement. That was the idea. Let's do a better job of listening, and that should be the first step in better personalization.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about when you go too far. You've spoken and written about the spectrum of personalization from cool to creepy.
Yeah.
How do you avoid going to the creepy end of the spectrum?
Yeah, I'll talk about both sides. So the creepy end of the spectrum, we usually see that three things are needed to avoid that. The first is transparency. If you're going to have data that you're going to be using, you should be very transparent about how you're using that. The customers really appreciate that. Two is that you should give them control over it, not just being able to opt in and out, but the more nuanced control they have, the better they feel about it. And then finally, it should be as a service to them. If you do those three things, you almost never get near that creepy line. It's very clear it's a service to them. What's interesting is that we did a survey recently and we found out the thing people found most cool was digital apologies, regardless of what channel. They love the idea that if something went wrong, that they didn't have to reach out, but that you immediately went out and said, you know what, we screwed up. I'm really sorry about that. And it was amazing that that would pop to the top of all the coolest things. You would think it may be some push marketing, no, not even close. It was that by far.
It built the relationship.
It did. It helped build that trust, and it added to a situation that was negative actually turned into a positive. So.
Right. Let me ask you one final question. I'm going to ask you to put on your consumer hat and tell us about a personalized experience you had with a brand recently that just hit the mark, that really impressed you.
Okay, this is it's funny. I had an experience Sunday night that is an unusual experience, and I have to thank Adobe for this. We had dinner at the Wayne Newton Mansion, and I got a chance to spend time with Wayne Newton and his wife, along with 8 or 9 of us that were part of the think tank stuff and the rest of the team there. And I was amazed. He spent an hour with us, and his authenticity, his just niceness was amazing. But he gave us some advice that I took as like the most amazing advice I've ever heard in the personalization space. He said he had gotten sick at one time before like going out on stage, and another musician asked him, "Hey, are you gonna tell the audience that you're not feeling well?" And he's like, "I don't know. Should I?" And he's like, "No, they didn't come here to hear your problems. They come here to forget their problems." And I thought, how often brands, through the call center rep, website, whatever, will say, including in my world, in the agency world, we explain, "Oh, sorry, but the problem is we're still dealing with this merger, or our systems aren't quite up to speed, or whatever else," and we share that with the customer, when in fact we should be taking that advice from this brand icon for 60 years doing this stuff. It is not really something you should be sharing. You should be helping them forget their problems, not putting yours on them. So
that's a great story and a great way to cap off this interview. I thank you so much for sharing your perspectives. As a reminder, everyone, we've been talking with Jeriad Zoghby, who is the Global Personalization Lead at Accenture Interactive. If you're anywhere on the personalization learning curve, I hope you've gleaned lots of great insights and ways to succeed. Thank you so much for joining us.